it's Carrie. In today's video, I was going to show you how I take tomatoes from my July harvest video and turn them into a yummy sauce. So to make this recipe, I get all my tomatoes ready. I wash them all and put them in a colander to drain and dry. And while that's going, I get my pans out and I line them with foil. We're going to need enough of tomatoes to make 16 cups of chopped up tomatoes, just diced, like big dices. So we need to make sure we have enough of tomatoes for that, or you can portion it down to whatever you do have. Then I get my cutting board and knife and a 4-cup measure, and it's time to get to chopping. We start chopping all the tomatoes. I really like to use just the cherry tomatoes. They're my favorite. It makes a much thicker sauce, and to me just the same monotonous movement is so much easier than having to like core the bigger ones, and the bigger ones are so messy. They have so much liquid in them. I know you get through it faster, but it's almost harder because there's so much liquid on your cutting board and you have such a mess to clean up afterwards, whereas if you're using just cherry tomatoes, you don't have that mess. But that was all I had today, so that's what I ended up using. And whenever you do use just cherry tomatoes, it turns out into a really thick sauce, kind of like a marinara sauce, whereas whenever you use a mixture of both, it's a whole lot more like a sauce. It's like a lot runnier and thinner. Last year, I was completely overrun with tomatoes. We had so many cherry tomatoes to the point to where I was literally giving them away. I tried dehydrating them, and we tried to make sauce. I didn't have this recipe at the time, and they were just okay. But I think next year I'm going to grow even more. We weren't the biggest fan of dehydrating them either. So now that we have these recipes, we will definitely be growing more tomatoes. We don't use a ton of spaghetti sauce, so this will be good. I mean, I don't think we'll need a ton more plants. We probably go through maybe 1 to 3 jars, probably at the most, a month. So we don't need that many to get through the full year. And my favorite tomato is the Sun Gold. My children like the Sun Sugar, but my favorite is the Sun Gold. I think it has the best flavor, and it's a little cherry tomato, but I'm definitely going to be growing more next year. And I was concerned too whenever I had first made this recipe that it might taste bad, because I had heard that if you make sauce with the seeds that it would taste bad, but it really didn't have a bad flavor at all. I don't know if it's just because we're cooking them in the oven or not canning them or what, but it tasted really good, and my family's really picky, and they said it even tasted better than the store-bought sauce. And I love that you can have it however you want. Like, you can control the ingredients if you want more or less sugar or whatever. I'm going to show you how we made it with less sugar, but my family prefers it with more sugar. I'll tell you how much we added at the end to it to make it with more sugar the way we liked it. But it's so nice if you grow without pesticides or anything to have organic produce, and it's kind of sad if you don't have anything to do with it. You feel like you're wasting it, and I was so happy to find this, because basically you'll have organic sauce, and I don't know about you, but for one, it's hard to find things like that where I live, and another, even just the regular sauce is getting crazy expensive. Like, I think at Walmart where I'm at, Prego is like $3.50 a jar. Now you can get it on sale at some grocery stores cheaper than that, but that's crazy. $3.50 a jar. That makes your meal pretty expensive whenever you have to pay that much. But I really like this, and this recipe is for freezing them. Or you could just make it and use it within the next few days too. That would be fine, but I am not the biggest fan of canning. I live in a small house and it gets really hot and really humid, so I am not the biggest fan of that. My favorite ways of preserving things are through freezing and dehydrating. That's my favorite thing. So after you've got all your tomatoes chopped up and on the pan, I take a little bit of olive oil, probably 2 tablespoons per pan is what I use, and drizzle it over the tomatoes and give them a good stir. And then they're ready to go into the oven. Then I put the pans in the oven at 250 degrees for 20 minutes. And then I set the timer for an hour and 20 minutes so I don't get all my 20-minute times mixed together and I remember how long it takes to actually cook it. So we're going to cook them for a total of an hour and 20 minutes at 20-minute intervals. So it's been 20 minutes and we're going to see what they look like. Not much different, but we need to swap them. So I put the bottom one on top and the top one on the bottom and turn it on for another 20 minutes. Okay, they've cooked for 40 minutes now. We're going to swap them again and cook them for another 20 minutes. They've cooked for an hour now. You can tell they're really starting to change and it's getting really nice and steamy. And we're just going to swap them again in 20 more minutes. Okay, they're done. We're going to pull them out of the oven and see how nice they look. They're all steamy and you can tell they've cooked down a lot and got all their juices out and they look really, really good. Now we're going to go to the next step and we need to get our blender and spices out. And now I put all the tomatoes into a high-powered blender. Be careful because they are very hot. First, I add the lemon juice. This really brightens up all the flavors. Then we're going to add minced garlic. We're also going to add powdered garlic too, but we're going to do minced right now. Then we're going to add our salt. I'm using Himalayan pink salt, but you can use whatever your favorite salt is. And next we're going to use Parmesan cheese. Then we're going to add the sugar. I put about a tablespoon here, but if you like it more like Prego, add about a half a cup. Then we're going to add oregano. You can also use fresh. I'm using dried here, but you use whatever you like or whatever you have. And parsley is up next. I'm using dried, but again, you can use fresh. Now I'm adding basil. Again, you can use dried or fresh. In my meat sauce, I end up using fresh, and it was really nice. Then I add onion powder. And now we're finally getting to that garlic powder. The last ingredient is crushed red peppers, and now we're going to put the lid on and blend it all up really good. The full recipe with the exact amounts of how much I used of everything can be found on my blog. I'll have it listed down below. After I've got it good and blended up, we're going to blend up all them skins and stuff, so you got to blend it really good. But after it's all blended up, I pour it into a pan and put a lid on it and let it sit in the fridge overnight for all the flavors to meld together and it'll taste so good. Okay, it's the next day and we have let that sauce sit and it is ready to be packaged up. You can package it in jars or baggies or even containers, whatever you like to put it in. If you're putting it in glass jars, you need to freeze it or use it the next day. I am not a big fan of freezing in glass jars, but I know some people do that and they just wrap it in cloth and it does just fine, but I'm not a big fan of that. The only way I put it in a jar is if I'm going to use it that day and then I just put it back in the fridge. Again, we're not canning anything, we're just freezing or making it and using it in a good enough time where it doesn't go bad. Also, I forgot to mention that this gave me about 2 quarts worth of sauce. Okay, don't forget to check out my blog where the full recipe will be there, and I will leave a link to that in the description. I will also have a variation on the sauce recipe where I turn it into meat sauce, so keep a lookout for that as well. I hope this helps. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye!